Ever since I stabilized Dreamlight Valley within our reality, I kept getting a sneaking suspicion that something was missing. Maybe lots of things. It wasn't until one rainy day that I finally found out what. Through the message podium, I received a strange signal from Jafar, coming from a place known as Eternity Isle. It was a lone island floating ethereally through time. And ever since I brought Dreamlight Valley to our world, it was disconnected. But Jafar had found a way to connect our two worlds together. And so, through his connection and Merlin's magic, I found Eternity Isle. Alongside me and Merlin, I brought Scrooge, Goofy, Remy, and the Forgotten to check it out with me. It was a lush place, dominated by monkeys, capybaras, and cobras. Skitter, the squirrel, was eager for adventure, and so the two of us went inland to take a closer look. Upon the island, I discovered an abandoned house. Once I went inside, however, I discovered it was my house. Or to put it more accurately, I could use this house as a temporary portal back to my original house on Dreamlight Valley. This new portal technology connecting different buildings was not just found in this house. We found an abandoned store, an abandoned restaurant, and plenty of abandoned stalls, which Scrooge, Remy, and Goofy all renovated and set up business here. Sooner or later, I encountered Jafar again in the form of another hologram. He told me that in order to properly traverse the island, I'd need the enchanted hourglass, a peculiar staff that manipulated time. Well, at least on this island, at least. Jafar told me where to find it, but to my surprise, someone was guarding it. It was Eve. Eve didn't exactly trust me, so I made her something that told me she had nothing to fear. After that, she let me pass, and I obtained the hourglass. There was a large temple connecting the three areas of the island together. After making my way through, I discovered that there were 3 statues that I had to restore power to with the hourglass, in order for me to meet Jafar in person. I already found one thanks to my interaction with Eve, but there were 2 more still missing. Afterwards, I fixed the bridge connecting the other 2 areas. The wild tangle of a jungle and the glittering dune desert. I decided to head into the jungle first to see what I could see. As it turns out, Eve wasn't alone here, because behind an ancient waterfall, I discovered Rapunzel. She was trying to get through a temple door to see what lay beyond it. I decided to help her out using the hourglass. And behind the temple door, we found a huge ancient clock. And after helping her rebuild it, we became friends. Furthermore, Rapunzel led me to the second statue, and thanks to her interactions, we restored that one too. After the clock and the statue, Rapunzel had another problem she needed help with. Her tower was overrun with swirling sands. I was able to get rid of them thanks to the hourglass. But in the sands, she kept seeing visions of Mother Gothel. It was obvious that her fears of Gothel were still present. So the pair of us made a special charm that contained a little portion of Rapunzel's magic. Hopefully Gothel would leave her alone now. After all that, I began progressing through the glittering desert. I really don't like deserts. I'm just not in my element here. But despite the heat, I eventually found a third person. One who I was less excited to be meeting. Gaston. Gaston was every bit as full of himself as you could imagine. He refused to listen to anyone except his own voice. So much so that he claimed the entire island for his own, calling it Gastonia. However, there were moments that did hint that Gaston was suffering out here in the desert. Being on his own, trying to find ways to keep himself busy, trying to have adventures, but to no avail. Gaston figured that he needed a new sidekick, so he ultimately chose me to replace his LeFou. He decided to go on an adventure into the so-called Cave of Wonders. It was here on Eternity Isle, but Jafar had the two missing pieces of the scarab that we needed to get in. Once me and Gaston put the two pieces together, the scarab flew away, so the two of us followed it to the Cave of Wonders. Typical of Gaston, he sent me in all alone, just so he can get the treasure I found for him. Too bad nobody told him that nobody could ever touch the treasure within. Anyway, I decided to explore a little deeper, and at the end of the cave, I found the third statue. Gaston was severely disappointed with how the adventure went. So, to make it up for him, I decided to help rebuild his tavern, and in return, Gaston opened up a new stall where he could sell meat of all sorts. Don't ask me where he gets it from, I don't know his supplier. Anyway, with all three statues restored, the time anomalies had stopped, and I was able to make it to the Agrabah Palace at the heart of Eternity Isle. There, I finally met Jafar face to face. It was here that Jafar revealed his true intentions. He was looking for something beneath Eternity Isle called the Spark of Imagination. With it, he could essentially rule all of time and space. But there was just one thing left he needed: the enchanted hourglass. I refused to let him have it, and thanks to the support of my new friends, Jafar had no choice but to flee to the castle for safety. After the confrontation, I ended up speaking with Merlin. He told me that although Jafar had secluded himself in the palace, he was still very dangerous, and so we decided to keep an eye on him, just in case he should ever show himself again. Furthermore, I decided to give my 3 new friends some very nice jobs. I helped Eve discover that she can make great fireworks. Gaston would continue to open his tavern to the residents for parties and other such events, along with selling meat at his stall, while Rapunzel opened up art classes for many of the residents on the islands. Once everything was over, I decided to bring the 3 residents back to Dreamlight Valley. There were reunions all around. Eve got to reunite with Wally. Rapunzel got to reunite with Gothel. As for Gaston, he knew he couldn't compete with Belle or the Beast. So he decided to keep an eye on things on Eternity Isle for me. He was happy to live there for now, keeping an eye on Jafar. And until the day Jafar ever decides to return to continue his search for the Spark of Imagination, We'll be waiting for him.